Hello, music appreciation students, and welcome to our fourth and final installment on music of the prehistoric and ancient world. We're going to finish today talking about Greece. Now, for this class, we focus mainly on Western music, so please don't be offended that I'm not talking about the music of China or those Eastern cultures. My hope is that our final week of class together, or our final unit, that we'll get to explore some of these other cultures' music. But today, we're going to finish up just talking about Western ancient music. So we're going to finish it up with Greece. And, the Greeks and the Romans, few ancient cultures have done more to shape the way that our current society functions than those two groups of people. But the Greeks I find to be extremely interesting. So if you're not familiar with the Greeks, they're from Greece, obviously, which is a beautiful country on the Mediterranean. It's just, it's a really beautiful country, a lot of history there. So I got you a friendly little map so you can see what Greece looks like here. All right. If you follow world economics, Greece is always kind of in this turmoil as far as their finances go as well, which is a shame. But the people in the music from Greece, they are responsible for developing one of our first musical notation systems. And they actually had the first music festival around 586 BC. As a matter of fact, music performance was part of the Olympic Games. The Greeks recognized the athleticism required to be able to perform music, so it was part of the Olympic Games. Our words, music, rhythm, harmony, and symbol, are Greek words, and there are more than just that, but those are I would say, the four big ones. And they developed our foundations of Western music theory. Scholars in Greece started to notice these things, and we'll talk about some of that in just a little bit. They also discovered the mathematics of music. One thing that I hope you take from this class, and one of the reasons why we read the book, This Is Your Brain on Music, is that music, while some people just see it as art, it's finally starting to be recognized as more than art, that it's really a science. There's a science to music. There's a lot of mathematics at work in music. There's a lot of psychology involved in music. So it's finally starting to get traction in other areas than just art. And we also have the Greeks to thank for the creation of modes, which are our precursors to scales. So common instruments that we'll get from the Greeks are flutes, lyres, syrinx, which are panpipes. So if you've ever watched Fantasia, the original Disney Fantasia, and the little half goat, half human things that play little panpipes, that would be a syrinx. The tympanon, which is a precursor to the modern timpani, and the hydraulis, which is the water organ. So they actually had keyboard organ instruments back then, but they would have been powered by water, probably pushed through the bellows by slaves. So some notable Greeks, people you've encountered in other academic pursuits, I'm sure. Pythagoras, a famous Greek mathematician, philosopher, and musician. He was the first to relate the pitch of a note to the length of the string. So you can test this out for yourself. When I was a little kid, I would take a rubber band. I'm going to draw a rubber band here, and I'd put it between my fingers. And the further I stretched the band, the wider I made it, the higher the pitch. Or if I brought it inward, the lower the pitch. Okay? So he did something very similar, but he noticed that there were specific ways you could do it to get specific pitches. He also developed our idea of the musical interval. Now, the idea is the operative word there. Musical intervals have always existed, but he's the first one to sit down and say, I think this is what it is. Okay? And he was the first to notice a rational relationship between pitches, that 2 to 1 is an octave. So in our Western tuning, A is 440, and that gets you A4. If I want A5 is going to equal 880. Okay? A 3 to 2 ratio for the fifth, and a 4 to 3 ratio for the fourth. So that's the math coming out in the music. Another notable Greek is my personal favorite, Aristotle, who is a very famous Greek philosopher. If you've taken philosophy, I'm sure you've read about Aristotle. But he developed our foundations of modern music theory. Okay, he developed some of the principles we still use today. He discusses the effects of melodies, modes, and rhythms on the listener in his treatise, The Politics. And he believed firmly that music held significant power in the development of one's character. He even is quoted as saying, to control the music is to control the people. And that's really wise and very foresightful. And you can do studies of different governments and different religious sects and things like that and see how they control what people listen to, the music that they're exposed to, because that exposure has a direct impact on their thoughts. So if you look back to like Soviet Russia and the music that was approved to be listened to, it was all very much in keeping with that Soviet ideal of perfectionism. And anything that was out of that was seen as subversive and not something that you should be listening to. So it's pretty interesting. And he also had a student, Aristoxenus, who formalized the Greek scheme of our modes. So there's a picture of some Greek people playing lyres. And here's actually some ancient Greek music. Now, I can't read that. Maybe you can, but there are people on the face of this earth that can. Here's an example of a Greek drum, a Greek harp, and that is all. So there you go. There's your quick tour of Greece. So I will be putting the playlist up so that you can listen to these tracks as well and get an idea for what all of these different types of music sounded like. The Unit 2 quiz will also be there for you to take. And if you have any questions or anything, just shoot me an email. Have a good one. Bye.